All right, we're live. Thanks for coming in. I don't know if this is working. Hello. I think this is working. Who knows? 20 seconds in. If I have to redo this, I guess I will later. Anyway, thanks for coming, everybody. Going through the Champions League slate for this week. It's December 7th today. I believe that's Pearl Harbor Day in the U.S. Anyway, no one cares about that. So let's go into the first match. So this is the last match day of Champions League. A lot of berths in the next round. Also, third place finishes in each group are important for qualifying for the Europa League. And then some teams probably just want their season to end, like Olympique de Marseille, who is only winning league games in France right now compared to in the Champions League. So first match on the list for Tuesday, the 8th of December, is Lazio hosting Bruges. I think this is a decent match, but ultimately Bruges is the inferior side from Belgium. I thought that we might see 3/4 of a goal. And I basically made all my lines based on what I would expect to be full strength from each of these teams. Likely I'm going to be significantly off based on who's playing what starters. But as you saw last week, teams like Bayern Munich, when they don't play their best players, can still scrape out a result against the league leader, basically, or with games in hand. But I think Atletico Madrid is basically in the lead right now in Spain, but Bayern's backups basically managed to draw. Pretty impressive, but maybe we're thankful to a late penalty for that. Anyway, so with that said, I had Lazio giving 3/4. That looks to be where it is. That tells me that both teams are probably going for this. Lazio has not been playing very well in the league, or really at all, I think, this year, but are in a decent position after drawing at Dortmund to take some confidence out of that, even though Dortmund hasn't been very pretty either. But anyway, so not a lot there. I think I'd only look at the Bruges side, and I'm not really sure that that's for me. We'll see what happens. Not sure. Anyway, so next on the list after that one is Zenit and Dortmund. It makes sense they're probably playing all these games against each other as they don't want to give any unfair advantage for people knowing results. I had Borussia Dortmund giving 1.5 goals to Zenit, who's been struggling pretty poorly. At least they were pretty bad last week in Champions League play, and I think are at the bottom of the group with no real chance to advance. And it looks like they're only getting 3/4 of a goal. So that tells me that Dortmund, I think, has already clinched moving on. So they're probably not playing as many players as you would expect. But ultimately, the backup squad for Dortmund might be as strong as the starters for Zenit. Zenit's got a lot of players, and I think they've been doing pretty well in the Russian Premier League. But they've got a lot of starters from the Russian national team, and they're not a team full of scrubs, in my opinion. I've been kind of surprised at how poorly they've done in Champions League, but the step up in competition is significant. And it looks like some other teams from Russia have put a different level of focus on this tournament versus the domestic league. Anyway, so at 3/4 of a goal, it's a pretty low, about half price of what I was expecting if I was going to look at Zenit. That still would be the only side I have, as I'm an underdog better. But Zenit's interesting to me, at least a little bit. Check lineups and see what happens tomorrow in the early window. Next match is Barcelona hosting Juventus. Disappointing for football fans around the world because, unfortunately, it doesn't look like Messi or Ronaldo will actually play in any match that matters. Doubt they both play in this one, as it really means little besides to win the group. And I'm not sure that that's enough for them for either side to give their best players any sort of time on the pitch. I think both are focused more on domestic leagues, so this is probably a pretty quiet match in terms of what I think the press will want to cover it, but I think they're going to be pretty disappointed in what is actually what products on the field. But I made Barcelona a quarter goal favorite. That's what they are. It's pretty juiced right now, which is interesting to me. I think both of these sides are pretty good. I would favor Barcelona on a neutral field, though Juventus seems to have a bit of a stronger team now based on Barcelona's injury status. So maybe I wouldn't make Barcelona a favorite on a neutral field, as they actually have lost a lot of people due to injury. Haven't been playing very well, and definitely lost this weekend against Cadiz, which is pretty. I mean, Cadiz is decent, but certainly not a match that Barcelona expected to lose. And Juve came back from, I think, a 1-goal deficit to beat Torino in the Turin derby, which is pretty good. You got to do that against your rivals. But one was able to win this weekend, one wasn't. So Juve might be feeling a little bit better about themselves. And you kind of have a balance of being angry and being motivated versus being feeling decent about your team and maybe having a little confidence, which I think is the biggest deal in all of sports. Moving on, as I don't think there's too much there unless Juve surprisingly plays a really full lineup. That would be the side I want as they're the underdog. And maybe catching a half a goal where you win on a draw would be interesting, because I don't really see a lot coming from this match, unfortunately, for everybody involved. Next is Leipzig against Manchester United. I made Man United pick them on the road here against Leipzig. And it looks like they're getting a quarter, which is interesting to me because Leipzig is a must-win game for them. They've had a really tough set of matches. It's pretty incredible. In a week, they'll have played Istanbul in Turkey, which they came back and won at the death in stoppage time, in a must-win that they had to win, essentially, to be in any sort of play for advancing. Then they played their hardest game of the year at Bayern Munich, which they played very well, had a great plan, not really one that seemed like it was out of the ordinary, as it was basically the same plan that Hoffenheim used to beat Bayern nearly a month ago, or maybe 2 months ago at this point, earlier in the Bundesliga season, which was to use their speed on the wing. And they made an early substitution, taking out Forsberg, who was playing in kind of a false nine type of role, trying to suck in the center backs of Bayern Munich to then give space on the wings even more, I think, along the Hoffenheim lines. It worked pretty well. Leipzig was in a good position, could have even won the match at Bayern, which would have been pretty incredible. Settled for a 3-3 draw. Great game to watch, especially if you had no money involved, just a lot of scoring and not much defense. But I think that's a problem for Leipzig, because they're coming off now. They had to really expend a ton of energy to win that match in Istanbul. Then they played their toughest match of the Bundesliga season. Not sure that they went all out, because they did make a fair amount of substitutions. But then they've definitely shown their defensive problems, where Bayern basically was able to do what they wanted when they had the ball and really could put the ball in the net. But they deserve credit for a draw in the toughest fixture of the domestic German season. So credit them for that. But then you come to tomorrow's match, and Manchester United is coming off yet another comeback win. It's honestly incredible. The team isn't that they're not good enough to play well for 90 minutes. Apparently, they just need some sort of. I don't see Ole being a stern talker in the locker room, but they need some sort of deficit and some sort of rallying cry to get going. That's disappointing, but it's been working out recently. And it worked really well in the first matchup that I believe went goalless, 0-0 to halftime. And then Manchester United just crushed Leipzig on the counterattack and scored 5 goals in the second half. Probably a few that were past Leipzig not even caring anymore about the match. But one of the bigger news items for this one is Upamecano, who's one of the biggest transfer rumors from last summer, and then probably will be for this winter and next summer as well, is suspended off a really bad call in Turkey for his accumulation of yellow cards. So he's suspended. That's a big problem, which puts Konate, who's been starting for Leipzig, but I think also puts Vili Orban, who's Hungarian and kind of has been the third central defender. So definitely not top strength in a defense that's been pretty leaky in recent weeks, maybe this whole season. So that's a concern, especially against the speed and what United did the first time they played. I think now in this situation where Leipzig has to win to advance, draw won't do it. So they have to win. So they're going to be pressing and trying to score quite a bit this whole match. I think that in every soccer match, the first goal is really what determines how things are going to go. But mostly in this one, because Leipzig's been having a ton of possession, haven't been doing a lot with it, even in the league, honestly. They should have that again here, just like the first meeting at Old Trafford. But who knows what's going to happen, because they weren't able to do much with a lot of possession, probably over 60% of the ball against United the first time, at least while the game was still in the balance. Weren't able to score. and that just left them open. And I think that's going to happen again. I do have a Leipzig future to win the entire competition, not expecting to cash that whatsoever. Probably wasn't when I placed it, but thought they had a good chance of advancing, and were priced pretty highly to do so. And I didn't have any to advance odds from the group stage. But that's U.S. sports books for another day. Anyway, I'd circled Manchester United as a pick'em, though I have plenty of problems with who they are and how they play. They also got to rest Rashford, who's got a shoulder problem, but not as big of a deal in soccer. They got to rest him and also Bruno Fernandes until they were trailing at halftime on the weekend, whereas Leipzig had to play all their players. And other than Forsberg coming out a little bit early, I think maybe there's some players that didn't start for Leipzig, but ultimately this is a huge matchup and will go as that first goal goes in. Problem is that Manchester United has shown their best on the counterattack. Leipzig seems very vulnerable to that. And giving a quarter it does make sense. It matters that they're at home, but it's not as much of a home field advantage here, in my opinion, because Leipzig had to go from Turkey back home to Munich, back home to Eastern Germany, where they're now sitting there waiting for United to come in. I'm not sure that United's going to be well rested because no one in this competition really is, but they've got a rest advantage. There's no fans to worry about that I can think of. I don't think Germany's letting anybody into their grounds while England's going the other way, which is funny. But getting a quarter is really interesting. It makes sense also that the quarter is pretty juiced right now. I imagine it'll stay that way. But in this sport, it seems to be a lot of people bet based on what needs to happen rather than what is happening on the pitch. And that's been something that I've really liked in the last few match days, for instance, Bundesliga last year, where it's like one of the easier cards out there. And I think I went 6-1. So I'm hoping to do something like that tomorrow. I'm not sure there'll be that many opportunities, but definitely look in the Manchester United direction. Although I think anyone who's not a Man United fan wants Leipzig to win this match. Okay, so that went on forever on that one. Sorry for that, but I think that was the most important and one I thought the most about. Chelsea made a 1 3/4 goal favorite to Krasnodar. Probably not playing their best players, no reason to, but they're far and away better than Krasnodar, and even their backups are. Now, with that said, Krasnodar hasn't played poorly and haven't looked bad at all, in my opinion, in this competition. They look like they have been up to the task, but ultimately it's hard going against Chelsea because even their backups would start on most of these teams in this competition, it seems. At least some, not the big clubs, but a lot of the lower ones, and certainly would start for Krasnodar. So skip past that one. The other match in the group is Rennes against Sevilla. Sevilla missed its chance to win the group, but clearly didn't care about it when they sat a lot of their studs in their meeting with Chelsea. They're worried about domestic play because they haven't been very good. Had a loss to Real Madrid on the weekend in a game they're actually favored in, which is, I think, shows how far Real Madrid has fallen this season. But ultimately, things are the way they are, and I can't imagine they're going to try very hard in this match. I made them a 1-goal favorite at full strength as they struggled with Rennes when they played it. They struggled to beat anybody, really, but advanced because their group hasn't really put up much of a fight. And that initial 0-0 draw at Chelsea. But Rennes only getting a quarter at home. Rennes been awful, lost in the French league this weekend. They haven't been winning anything. They've been so stretched. I'm not sure they were good anyway. And then playing in 2 competitions has been really troubling for them. So I'm going to look past that one. It would be Rennes or nothing, and they're playing pretty poorly. Next in the other big match in the United group is PSG hosting Istanbul Başakşehir. I made PSG a 2-goal favorite, knowing that it's in their best interest to win. They can still get in as long as Leipzig and United don't tie. So if United wins, they'll get in on the tiebreaker with Leipzig. So there's a lot of space here for PSG, though their coach Thomas Tuchel is potentially losing his job over this result. And the front line of PSG is awesome. I mean, they rested a bunch this weekend. So got a great goal from Moise Kean. It's a clear mismatch. So the first meeting was fairly close until PSG got a goal and then a late one to really, I think, make the scoreline look a lot different than it did. Meanwhile, Istanbul played pretty well and had an amazing performance with a hat trick against Leipzig and came back to tie the game 3 different times, which is pretty incredible, only to lose on a last-second goal and a great shot from Sorloth. But I think Istanbul has been competitive. Now, I thought about backing them in that match against Leipzig. I ended up kind of going for a different kind of strategy now, where I'm really sick of juicing out on most of these games. So I'm trying to pick a little bit more conservatively. And I thought that if Leipzig scored first, that it might be hard for Istanbul to stay in it, as they had some goals to stay in and needed to win to keep their dream alive. Now the dream's gone. They're eliminated. They don't have to worry about qualifying for third or anything like that. I think they're going to play and try to be a spoiler here, which interests me. And I circled them when I made this match, especially considering they're catching 2 goals. PSG has had trouble showing up for games that really mattered in domestic play because they win that league every year. And then who knows? I mean, this game does matter to them, certainly. But that only really adds, especially when they're giving 2 goals, or at least that was my guess. Now I'm looking at the line, seeing it's 2.5. That's a huge number for PSG to cover. Certainly can do it. They've got the talent to do it for sure. But Başakşehir catching 2.5 at even money right now, that's going to be almost impossible for me to stay away from, unfortunately. A simple 1-goal lead wins for PSG. And, I got to think that Turkey, they're not too proud. I mean, they know that they're the underdog in this group anyway, and no one expected them to have a chance. If they could keep PSG from moving along, I think that'd be a huge step for them. Granted, I'm interpreting what a completely different culture thinks. But I could see them just literally parking the bus for 95 minutes, 100 minutes with extra stoppage time and all that sort of stuff. And literally saying, PSG, try to put it past 11 people in the box. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're a little more, they have a little more pride than that. But a 3-0 win is it's a big ask, I think, for a side that's really struggled to show that they're really motivated in all their matches. So probably against my better judgment, I've backed Başakşehir a couple times so far, and they've treated me fairly well. They had a really poor match against Manchester United, but also beat them. So, I mean, I guess with one good comes a bad performance, I guess. So they're not the most consistent side. They're definitely the weaker side here. But there's a lot of room to lose and cover that spread, especially at 2.5, and it might be climbing even higher. So then I think the last match tomorrow is Dinamo Kiev against Ferencvaros. Not a lot of interest for me there. I made it at quarter. Looks like it might be more like a half. I think it's going to be a half for Dinamo Kiev. That seems large to me. I don't really have a lot to say about either of these sides, though, so I'll move along to Wednesday. Ajax is the first match hosting Atalanta. This seems to be I guess Atalanta can take care of business and not have to worry about anything. I made them a quarter favorite here against Ajax. I'm thinking that probably means that Atalanta has already advanced based on this number. I can't imagine that Ajax would be a quarter favorite at home. So this is what happens when I didn't look at lines beforehand, but I guess we're jumping into it now as we go. So Ajax is only a point behind. So technically they can advance here. They do need a win because they drew and scored 2 goals. Actually, now that I think about it, drew and scored 2, I believe it was 2-2 final against Atalanta on the road. So this is not said and done by any means. Yeah, 2 road goals. So a draw, unfortunately, then that means Atalanta would draw as well. So they have to win. Draw doesn't do it for them. They have to win, and that's probably why they're favored. Like I said earlier, apologies for having to think about this as we're going, but that's life in 2020, I think. But I expected Atalanta to be a quarter goal favorite. They've not been playing very well. It's been pretty unimpressive and definitely had to come back to tie Ajax. But they're in a better position here and are pretty safe to advance so long as they don't lose. Now, that's why the point spread seems to be, or goal spread seems to be, a quarter favoring Ajax. I initially favored Ajax, hoping to get them, as I haven't liked the way Atalanta is playing, but was hoping to get them dogged. As a favorite here, I'm not interested because that's not really what I'm doing. And Atalanta's offensive power is still something you have to think of, especially not something you want to give goals to, I think. Next, after Liverpool clinched, a lot thanks to Atalanta not playing well, they get the minnow from Denmark, and that should be a blowout. But they're only a half-point favorite right now, or half-goal favorite. That likely means they're not playing anybody that we've heard of, but they're pretty decimated, so there's only so many players in the roster that are probably even eligible. Moving along to Bayern Munich hosting Lokomotiv Moscow, and another match that does not matter. Looks like a goal in 3/4. I had 2 goals in 3/4 if all the strengths played. We'll see who's playing here, because Lokomotiv is not been playing well in the Russian Premier League, and they might even be sitting players, as this match means nothing to them. Unfortunately, I think that's what's probably going to happen here. So even looking at a goal in 3/4, Bayern Munich's backup team is probably a lot better. It's probably one I should avoid. Though Loco has treated me pretty well in this tournament, has covered most of the matches until a late goal in the last one that really crushed bettors, made me feel differently about them. But ultimately, they've done me well in this tournament so far, so I'm thankful to them. And we'll look at their lineup tomorrow, but can't imagine I want to do too much with it with a line that's a goal shorter than I expected. The other that does matter is Salzburg and Atleti. It'd be crazy if Atleti in first place for all ifs and buts in La Liga didn't advance into the Champions League round of 16, the knockout stage. But there is some risk here. Now, Salzburg's getting some really strong lines this whole entire tournament. I'm not sure they really deserve them, but they had an important, crucial win in their last match. And I made Atleti a half-goal favorite here on the road. Looks like they're giving a quarter. Certainly not interested in going against Atleti. They've made me pay numerous times this season. Been playing really well, and I think the market likes them more than they usually do, to the point where I haven't really had many opportunities to play them either. Simeone knows what he's doing. They're going to play this match really tough. I'd be really surprised if they didn't advance. I mean, it's certainly possible. You never know. Szoboszlai could have a really hot match like the guy from Istanbul did last week and score 3 goals. But I'm pretty sure Atleti's going to advance. They're just too strong. But it'll be a good match to watch on Wednesday. Then we go to another incredible stage, Group B, I believe, with Shakhtar Donetsk, Inter, Real Madrid, and Borussia Mönchengladbach, which Gladbach's got to be in the toughest position of all, as they have had so many matches in their hands, in their grasp, and have let them go, including that incredible offside call last week, which is so brutal. I guess is correct by the rule of law, but stupid law in my opinion. Anyway, so in the first one is Inter. I made them a goal and 3/4 favorite after seeing Shakhtar get blown out by Gladbach twice. Inter's got an even stronger offense than that. Though you got to take into consideration that Shakhtar did somehow beat Real Madrid twice. It looks like a goal and a half, which is trending towards the number I made it, which is nice to finally have a match where both teams are trying. Inter won pretty handily in the Europa League last summer. I believe they played in Portugal. I guess if there's any side that I'd want here, it's a team that's nearly catching 2 goals, and it might get there. You never know. That'd be a pretty big move. But anyway, a goal in 3/4, losing 2-0, and they still would you'd only lose half your stake. So it's certainly possible if they score a goal here, Shakhtar is going to be pretty hard to lose in it against a spread wager. That's the only way I'd go. I'm not sure what I think about it just yet. Inter played better this weekend. Lukaku is so hard to stop. And Shakhtar is a huge underdog here, with Inter knowing that they need a win to make anything happen. Then we move to the next, and it's the Gladbach match. And I had Real Madrid giving a quarter at home, which I guess is way too low, even though I fully knew that both teams need this match. Really surprised to see them giving 3/4 of a goal, even though they were a favorite at home, on the road at Gladbach earlier this season. Real Madrid, they had a good win this weekend. Benzema returned in midweek, which is both really helpful for confidence and for playing structure, and really for health. I'm not sure if that means Sergio Ramos is coming back. They need him as soon as possible, as the defenses look terrible. The teams look bad. They've looked pretty thin. They didn't make any moves this summer, and then injuries have hit them, and they've been unable to withstand. Meanwhile, Gladbach came back and had a kind of tough match in a tough spot with SC Freiburg this weekend in Bundesliga. Ended up drawing 2-2. Scored the last goal to knot it up. I don't know that there are any injuries. Going to have to check Ilvedi's status. Gladbach, it seems like they're certainly the third best team in this group, and based on budgets, that's certainly correct. But they've done better than I think a lot of the lines have suggested they would, and they've outperformed, and I think have been good to people who have bet them, even after losing against the spread last week. Catching 3/4 means if they lose by 1, you're only losing half your stake. It's a loss, but I think Gladbach has a major chance here, especially because they've been sitting and trying to counter lately, and I think that'll be something that suits them well against Real Madrid, who know they need to win. They're going to be pushing for goals. That's what they do, and they haven't been that strong at it recently. So if this catches +1, I will definitely be on Gladbach on Wednesday. I'll wait to see if that happens. I'm not sure it gets there, but at the current 3/4 of a goal, I'm still interested in Gladbach, and we'll have to ultimately wait on lineups to see if I'm making that final decision. Would love for Ramos and others to be out, but wonder if they might even rush some people back. And with 5 subs, you can kind of take those risks nowadays, where with 3 you really couldn't. Definitely a Gladbach lean, but we'll see. Man City hosting Marseille, should be a blowout. Marseille got gifted penalties, 2 of them in the second half last match, and were undeserving winners. I still don't know how the second one was given, but that's debate for another day, and I hope that I'm over it after a week. Anyway, Man City, I had them giving 2 goals to Marseille. It looks like they're giving a goal and a quarter, probably not playing anybody because they've already advanced. Marseille, I think, is fighting for that third place position, and have been playing well in the league, to be fair, but the French league is certainly not the Champions League, to say the least. Not sure I'm interested in any sort of goal and a quarter on Marseille, even though they were priced at about, I think, 3/4 of a goal of an underdog to Lyon on the road. Is Man City double that? It probably makes sense. Doesn't seem like a big enough line for me to want to be interested in Marseille, but always hard for over a goal for me to say no. And then last but not least is Olympiacos and Porto. Again, this seems to be a match for third place. Porto, though, they did advance. They were expected to advance. They played, I think, as people expected, will be probably who everyone wants to play in the next round. And yeah, based on the line, I think with full strength, I would have made Porto a quarter, maybe a half goal favorite. Olympiacos here is giving a half, and looks like it's trending to 3/4. So it looks like Olympiacos, who I believe has the upper hand in tiebreakers and such, based on away goals, over Olympique Marseille. They look like a pretty good bet to advance here, as a draw would get them through, and they're likely to be favored by nearly a full goal when the match actually kicks off. So futures have not gone well. Lost Sevilla to win the group. Also lost Atalanta to win the group, which should have been in play for today. It's brutal. Sevilla, I think, struggling in domestic league play, forced their hand on who they could play in the last match against Chelsea. Sad, but oh well. Last pending is Red Bull or RB Leipzig to win the competition, and they're in trouble to advance as well. So not great for futures. Good thing that I take dogs at really big odds, so you're not expecting them all to come through. But anyway, it's been a great tournament so far. I'm looking forward to this week's play. I know you are too. And check in on my Twitter at @thereal_G Warner, and I will be playing hopefully not as many games as I have been in the past, but trying to make better decisions as we go. It's a long, difficult process, arduous process in 2020. Anyway, thanks for joining. Looking forward to seeing you later. And here's my Olympique Lyonnais shirt from when I was wandering around Lyon and saw a cool store that turned out to be the team store, which was pretty sweet. Back when we used to travel. Can't even remember what that feels like. Anyway, thanks for coming. Adios.